Thank you. Thank you. May I start by recognizing the chairman, Aig-Imoukhuede Foundation, a man that we've learned a lot from over the years. And I call him a mentor to so many, mentor of mentors. Mr. Aig-Imoukhuede, thank you for this great job. Thank you. May I also recognize the executive vice chairman. As a matter of fact, I think the engine room of Mr. Aig. Yeah. Let me specially recognize the executive governor of Adamawa State, here represented, the executive governor of Kano State, here represented, and let me recognize the head of service of the Federation, here represented, and of course, the immediate past head of service for initiating sustainable reforms. I recognize you now. And also, in saying that, let me say this. I must also recognize the present head of service, Didi Walsinjak, for not abandoning the reforms. Because in developing countries and emerging economies, the major threat is to see reforms and the successes of your predecessor as a threat to your own achievement. So it takes someone who understands institutional reforms to continue and entrench the reforms. So I think Nigeria has been quite lucky to have two fantastic, intelligent female. And I think now I can say this clearly, even though it's difficult to say. I believe what a man can do, a woman can do better. And let me recognize my own brother. And I keep saying he's a clear definition of business unusual. He's not a man of too many words, but he's a man who believes in legacy. And a man who understands that processes can only be quantified by virtue of efficiency. My own brother, the custodian of our digital economy, Dr. Bosun Tijani. Thank you. And also, based on what we want to talk about today, the man that exemplifies everything I'll be talking about. A man who has practicalized the theory we'll be talking about. A man who has conquered the three phases of organizational realignment. And when I say that, I spoke about it when I came to Lagos. The man who understands what, who understands how, and who understands when. These are three questions a public servant must understand. What do you want to achieve? Which is a statement of intent. Tells you about the mission and the vision. And of course, how? It's a statement of methodology. You cannot know, if you know what you want to achieve and you don't know how you will achieve it, then you're daydreaming. And of course, statement of when, which has to do with timelines, KPIs, ability to keep to your targets. A man that has really shown and reformed our electoral process. A man who, as a politician, I would say, gave us the confidence to say, if you do what is right and you win it, it will be given to you. For politicians, we understand what that means. Before him, you might win it and not get it. But with him, he has shown everything about public service, efficiency in public service. Professor Tahiru Jega, thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, all members of the diplomatic community, you're highly recognized. All directors in the House, head of service of various states in the House, and of course, all University of Oxford team in the House, Aig-Imoukhuede Foundation Leadership Council, and of course, the graduates of today, Cohort 5, I guess, yeah. And also, let me also recognize the Minister of Health, that's Professor Pate, here represented by the PAMSEC designate. So when they call you director, say, PAMSEC designate. I recognize you. Well, it is, let me start by appreciating, I call him a mentor. Mentorship is not an easy thing or an easy topic to talk about, but a man who has created something and everything from nothing. I tell people the difference between anything, something, and everything is that there must be a thing. That's the truth. That's what's there. But Mr. Aig, you have not just created institutions, you've created sustainable institutions. And I want to say a big thank you for the legacy that you're creating. Today, without taking your time, I'll be talking about transforming Africa's public sector. Yeah. Lessons in visionary leadership, accountability, and economic renewal. And in distilling this topic, the first thing I want to say is Africa. I sincerely believe God has blessed Africa. God has really blessed us. Not in terms of resources, not in terms, when I say resources, not in terms of mineral resources, or in terms of what we have, but in terms of who we are. The greatest asset of Africa are Africans. And I've always believed if we can understand the true meaning of service, then Africa will have a different story to tell. The developmental imperative. I say this, the public sector remains the single most influential mechanism shaping citizen reality and organizing opportunity. This means basically, I tell my officers at every point in time, people talk about public servants or civil servants as evil servants, but I say I don't know where they see their own evil. For me, in 3 years as Minister of Interior, God has blessed me with the best human beings as public servants around. And we must understand that public service is a hybrid of public and service. The greatest honor a man can have is to be given the honor to serve your people. There's no greater honor than that. And in a country of over 240 million people, how many public servants do we have? You will know how fortunate and how lucky you are to be called a public servant. And we must understand, for every action you take as a public servant, it's not about you, it's about the next generation. Statesman, the difference between a leader and a statesman is simple. A leader thinks of the next minute. The statesman thinks of the next generation. And In our journey of public service, we must understand that we cannot break the shackles of underdevelopment. We cannot break the shackles. Economic shackles, we cannot break the shackles of insecurity if we don't break the shackles of inefficiency in public service. The society is a universal set, and wherever we find ourselves, we are subsets of the universal set. So for us, we must understand that any public service that is not built on the altar of efficiency will end up being deficient. And when you talk about structural deficiency, you never can tell how it will hurt you. We've seen former governors, we've seen former ministers refuse to do the needful, and they themselves fall victim of their own misdeeds. So, as my mother will always tell me, if you do not conquer greed and inefficiency in public service, greed and inefficiency will make you deficient. And that's the truth. You must. And I tell people this very clearly. In your journey of public service, I tell you, the most brilliant, intelligent people you can get in Nigeria, I tell you, I've been in the parliament. I was chairman House Committee on Niger Delta Development Commission. Before I became chairman of NDDC committee, NDDC has spent 20 years in a rented apartment. An agency that budgets trillions of naira, yet could not house itself for 20 years. They were paying rent. But we took the decision, and in less than 2 years, we built we completed the biggest building you have in Rivers State today. Today, NDDC houses itself. And we said this then. When you are building a system, you might think you're the architect. Your job is just to be the architect, but you never know. Maybe in the future, it is your children that will be forced to live in there. So what you build will always wait for you ahead. So, to Cohort 5, I tell you, whatever you have learned is immaterial as long if you do not rightfully apply what you have learned. The most brilliant, qualified people you can get in Nigeria are Nigerian public servants. They know the right thing to do. Let's call a spade a spade. But the question is the will. It is the will, that split second, when you need to make a choice between what is right and what is not right. That split second, when you need to make a choice between greed for deficiency and self-fulfillment for efficiency. That is the defining moment of everybody's career. I'll say this, and I tell you, the most enticing option is always the option of inefficiency. That's the most enticing one. But the question I'll say, I will always ask, is if you take an inefficient option, can you live with the deficiency? We must ask ourselves. For us, a paradigm shift in governance, I have realized this. The few inefficiency that we have within our system basically goes down to people not understanding problems before providing solutions. A lot of people, most leaders, most public servants, they're in a haste to provide solution without taking time to understand the problem. My favorite secondary school teacher, my physics teacher in secondary school, that was my favorite subject. Mr. Ibrahim, he told me something. He said, spend more time understanding the problem, and you will spend less time in solving it. A lot of us, we have responsibilities that we don't even understand. So the paradigm shift is for you to ask yourself 2 questions wherever you find yourself in public office. And what are the 2 questions? What is and what ought to? You must ask yourself, what is the problem? What is the status? What is it? And in answering the what is question, you must make the popular Shakespearean quote your code in life. To thyself be true. To thy own self be true. A lot of people, leaders, even in our personal lives, we live in self-denial facts. And if you can't tell yourself the truth about the situation of your job, about your responsibility, if you cannot identify what the problems are, trust me, you'll be betraying public trust. You must ask yourself, what is, then what ought to? If you know what the problem is, and you know what ought to, then you sit down to create the methodology, how you will get to where you're getting to. So in your places of work, as you go back, you ask yourself, what am I supposed to be doing? And I'll give you might think it's a simple thing. When I became Minister of Interior, I went to NIS, one of the offices of NIS, trying to take a cue. And I got there, I saw some senior officers, controllers and etc. And I asked, office by office, sorry, what is this office about? I was with my PAMSEC, Toyin, and I realized I went to 7 offices. Only one person was able to tell me this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It happened practical. And the next thing I called the CG then, and I said, we must invest in capacity building. And we must start and go back and do what we call organizational capacity audit. You must identify the mistakes. So even for us as leaders, PAMSECs, head of service, ministers, are we asking a question that our people are not equipped to answer from them? You must ask yourself. And it's an act of wickedness to ask somebody to give you what he doesn't have. If a public officer does not know what he is supposed to be doing, and you expect him to be efficient, then you'll be daydreaming. So, we must understand the principle of what is and what ought to, and then solve that by being true to ourselves. We have to also understand that one of the major problems in any developing country, not just Nigeria, is that the attachment to legacies and traditions are so strong. Very tough. They will tell you this is how we used to do it. But the question I always ask is, this is how you used to do it, or you have been doing it. Where has it led you? And when you want to, you need strong will. And I think nobody is in a better position to talk about that than Prof. I believe using beavers and etc. People will always come for it. And when you are trying to detach yourself, it's when you now need to ask yourself a simple question. What is leadership? Is leadership a popularity contest? No. It is either you want to be popular or you want to be efficient. Pick one. Tough decisions. Even your friends benefiting from broken systems will come for you. But that is where you need the will. Because without that will, there will be No way. I'll give you an example, practical. When I became Minister of Interior in Immigration Service, for example, we inherited passport backlog, 204,332. People that have paid, applied, no passport. And I asked, what is the problem? At the end of the day, we realized that majority of the problem were not meant to be problems. Just bottlenecks and people so emotionally attached to business as usual. And I told my people, if you want a legacy, you must be allergic to business as usual. Your belief and your code must be business unusual. If what you do is the usual, then you can never be exceptional. It's not possible. You can never be exceptional if what you do, all you do, is the usual, what anybody else can do. With the same staff, without spending one dime, a backlog of 8 years, we were able to sort it in 2 weeks. With the same officers. The same officers. And that is why I tell you, the Aig Foundation has put so much money into doing what most people don't do. This is an intangible but everlasting asset, knowledge transfer. It's intangible, but it's forever. The gift you guys have gotten is not for the purpose of public service alone. Even in your individual lives, it goes with you. You must understand that there must be a strategic detachment from the business as usual. And also, we came and we saw that people, Nigerians in diaspora, they had to travel. I'll give you an example. In a country like Canada, people travel 6 hours just to go and renew passports. It becomes, who do you know? Oh yeah, you go and lobby, you go and do this. And I sat down and I said, in this era, I asked a simple question from the CG. I said, I'm a tech guy, I'm an engineer by training, but let me ask you, why do you need people at the embassy to renew passport? No, tell me why. The Dempsey said, that's how they've always been doing it. That's not an issue. It's not a reason. That's how it's not a reason. Tell me why. He said to take their biometric. Okay, why you take their biometric? Is the data base there or in Abuja? He said Abuja. So if it's in Abuja, why can't they do it remotely on their phones? It queries it and said, Botoga, I said, that's not an excuse. And I tell you, today, we broke that jinx by bringing the contactless application system. So you do not need to travel from Los Angeles to New York. You don't need to leave British Columbia to Ottawa. No, with your phone. Do your biometric, it queries it. If it's you, it confirms it's you, then we issue it and we courier and send it to you at home. And Nigerians are happy. And that's, Nigerians are happy because a student does not need to miss class just because he has an embassy appointment. You don't need to go with your children and your wife, pay for flight, pay hotel, inconvenient. And if you want to cut corruption, please reduce woman contact to the BRS minimum. As long as there is contact, what you bring will always be there. But today, even at our point of entry, one day I went to Heathrow, I went to UK, and at Heathrow, I just saw them British people. I know them, but soon we know. The British people. Oh, you see the E-gate. And I was on the normal queue. So when I came back to Nigeria, and also those Oyinbo using E-gate there, and me, I was on queue. I got back to Nigeria, both of us on the same queue. And I said, no, it cannot work. Possible. And the next thing we did, we introduced the E-gate for Nigerians. And since that time, Nobody asks you, Oga, wetin you bring come. Why? Because there is no human contact. So you must be deliberate about detaching yourself from the culture of business as usual. That is the major problem when it comes to public service efficiency. And we must understand visionary leadership is not defined by authority or position, but by capacity to imagine systems that function better than those inherited. And I want to say this to you without taking your time. Always understand this. I say this at all times to my colleagues. I am not in a position to blame myself for the system I inherited. But the fault and the blame will forever be mine if I hand over that same broken system to the next generation. That's the fact. Leadership is not about what you inherited. Leadership is about what you created. And also understand, the more broken the system you inherit, the better the opportunity for you to create a legacy. Understand that. Let's assume passports were good, visa issuance good, e-gates done, API solution done, Fire Academy done, all these CMAs done, there will be nothing for me to build as a legacy. So do not let the magnitude of the system you inherit confuse you. Don't let it confuse you. A lot of people fail because when they see the problem, they get so confused and in disbelief to the extent of convincing themselves that they can do it. Please, it's important that you understand the bigger the problem, the greater the opportunity to excel. As my mother will always say, sorry, I love my mom so much, we're damn close, so I always call her. As my mom will always say, that when God gives you a challenge, just know he sees an opportunity to etch your name in gold. The bigger the challenge, the bigger the price. That's the truth. A student that wants to go to a uni, we have a tougher exam than the one that wants to go to primary school. The higher you go, the tougher it gets. But the higher you go, the tougher it gets. But the higher you go, the more beautiful the view. So to get to that point where the view will be beautiful, you must be ready to do what we call sacrificial living. Leadership is about opportunity cost. That's the truth. I could remember when I told my mother I wanted to run and go to the House of Reps. The first question my mother asked me, are you sure you've conquered your greed? Leadership and public service it's not just about your capacity. It's about the willingness, and the willingness is a function of conquering your greed. There are so many people today that are inefficient, not because they're intellectually deficient, but because they're deficient at heart. You can be given all the trainings in this world, but it takes you to conquer yourself. Yeah. And I say this to you guys, a man who fails to conquer himself will end up being conquered by the least of things. Conquer your greed, and the whole world will bow at your feet. It's important. And I've seen that happen. Today, I came from NIS headquarters. I took two of our leaders, the new ambassador to US, Colonel Kayode Are, former DGDSS, and Ambassador Oke, the ambassador to France, to the NIS headquarters. For more than 2 hours, we're showing them project upon project, project upon project, project upon project. What millions of dollars. And I told them, I said, the beautiful thing with all this project is that we didn't take a dime from government. At no cost to government. We didn't issue new contracts. We renegotiated contracts and brought in the principle of value addition. And in this, today, before we came, Nigeria used to personalize passports in over 90 locations all over the world. The only country that does that. If you're an American, there are only 2 places where your international passport is personalized. Wherever you apply, it's either in Arkansas or in Texas. If you are British, it's in Durham. That's it. If you're in Canada, it's Ottawa. If you are in India, it's in Maharashtra. If you are Russian, it is in St. Petersburg. If you are South Africa, it's Pretoria. If you are from Ethiopia, it's Addis Ababa. If you are in Bangladesh, it's Dhaka. All over the world, I can tell you over 90 countries where they personalize. Because any solution we profile, I always say this, the only solution that is good enough for Nigeria is not an African or a Nigerian solution, but a solution that can be benchmarked against the best in the world. And the reason is simple. This is the biggest black nation on earth. And I say, over almost 250 million people. But with this, you personalize your national symbol of your sovereignty in over 90 locations. Nobody does that. But for the first time since 1963, when Nigerian Immigration Service was established, that's 63 years ago, we now boast of a multi-million-dollar centralized personalization center in Abuja. And with that capacity, we at the moment do about 2 million passports a year. We have a personalization center with a capacity of 4 million passports per year. And we did this without a dime from government purse. Through renegotiated contract to ensure that government interest is protected. And what does that mean? Trust me, there are options. The funds for that could as well ended elsewhere. But the truth is that it's about opportunity cost. Do you want a legacy or you want an immediate comfort? It's a choice. They can teach you everything about methodology, which I believe you've been taught. But who you are is what will bring efficiency to what you've been taught. Be a better person. Conquer yourself. Once you conquer your greed and yourself, you will have nothing to fear. Attributes of transformation leaders. We've spoken about courage. You must have the courage to do what is right. Innovation, which is breaking the barrier of business as usual, knowing fully well that innovation is the foundation of your legacy. Resilience, of course, it has to do with sustainability. And of course, accountability. You must be accountable. And you must understand that being accountable is not being accountable to your superiors. It's being accountable to your conscience. That's the truth. You can deceive everybody, but you can't deceive yourself. You can try to lie to yourself, but you must be accountable to yourself. And understand when you look at the mirror, ask yourself, the decision I'm taking, in the future will I be proud to say I actually took this decision? Ask yourself. Breaking institutional silos. For a lot of you, you must understand you can't work in silos. That's the beauty of teamwork. And understand that you are like a chain, and as a chain, the system is like a chain. It's only as strong as the weakest link. So it is not your responsibility where you work or wherever you find yourself to try to outshine the other. You are not competing. Complement one another. And understand this very clearly. I always say this, and it's not me. One of my mother's favorite prayers for me. And I think the first time I heard it was my 21st birthday. And she told me she was praying, you know, all the CSU reggae bush, you know. And she was praying, and it got to a point. She made a prayer point, and I asked her, I don't understand. And she explained. And what's that prayer point? She told me, may you never make a man that should be complimenting you, your competitor. A lot of us, in our careers, in our offices, people that are supposed to be complimenting our work, people that were supposed to be working together, exchanging notes, we are competing with them. That's unhealthy competition. So understand the people that you need to work together. And when you understand that, then create a mechanism for exchange. And always understand that it's sweeter when we win together. Please, always understand that victory is sweetest when we win together. So, not to take your time. I don't want to take too much of your time. I've already taken too much. And of course, we must look at there's a graph there, which is impact evidence-based leadership. A lot of us, we are too subjective to be objective. And a leader that leads by subjectivity will never break grounds. You must be objective. And I'll give you an example. In 2007, the United Nations, is it 2007 or 2009? I can't quite remember now. The United Nations Security Council came together and said, all border control and enforcement agencies must come up with what they call the API, Advanced Passenger Information. That is to say, before anybody comes in, you should know, so you can profile and be able to take what we call objective decision, border control decision. And before anybody leaves your shores, you must also, you owe that responsibility to the other country, to the destination point, to send the data and vice versa, to make the world, to make borders safer. And from 2007, it was never done in Nigeria. One, what does that mean? The meaning is, for everybody coming into Nigeria, it was more of discretionary evaluation on the part of the border control. When you get to Heathrow or JFK and you're on the queue and the border officer comes and says, excuse me, can I see you for a minute? Not be juju. It's because they have done pre-profiling. It was a decision of the UN, United Nations. We never had that. Immigration officers, they don't have laser in their eyes. They will have to say, where are you coming from? Where you they go? How much is with you? And it became a problem. But we came and in 2025, we were able to do that for Nigeria. And what does that mean? For anybody who enters Nigeria, before you come, the immigration service from a command control center is positioned to critically analyze you, using access to all criminal record database in the world, Interpol system, look at your pattern of life, know where you have been in the last 2 weeks. Have you been to a terrorist enclave? Have you done? They are not enabled. So the immigration officer is better enabled to take decisions. That is a typical example of what leadership is about. You must make sure that objectivity is your watchword and not subjectivity. Leadership is not about guesswork. The only place I support hypothesis is not in leadership, it's in the laboratory. Yes, because every invention is a product of hypothesis. For every successful hypothesis or experiment, a lot has failed. But just like in life, you might have failed 99 times. People don't know. That one success, that's the one that will be recorded. So you must, as a leader, as an emerging leader, you must learn to be objective. And it has to be data-driven. This is the era of data. Data is the new oil. Your KPIs must be data and empirical driven. In your office, what are your key performance indicators? You must know. It is only then that you will achieve what you need to achieve on time. A lot of people celebrate successes even with a lag period. Some of them, what you're supposed to have achieved 2 quarters ago, you will achieve it now, you'll be clapping for yourself. It's failure. You must understand that your performance has to be time-related and, of course, time-enabled. Institutional sustainability. Always build your institution beyond your tenure. Any decision that you take that will not be able to outlive your tenure is a wasted effort. That's the truth. You will not be judged in the future. You will not be evaluated by what the temporary gains, but you must look at the institutional gains. Structural embedding, then the operational DNA. Let excellence become your DNA. If excellence and efficiency is not your DNA, then trust me, for every progress you make, you will always retrogress. You must understand that it has to be a reflex action. You must get used to it. It becomes part of you. Wherever you find yourself, you must understand that just being average is the greatest threat to being excellent. A lot of us, we are so comfortable with being average. And like what I always say, I wasn't brought up to be average. If I find myself in parliament, it has to do with the quality of bills and what I do. As a Minister of Interior, I just don't want to be one out of 48 ministers of the president. What are you bringing on board? You must be allergic to average. Even in the delivery of your day-to-day assignment. And also understand that your legacy is the accumulation of your everyday activity. Your legacy is not just one day. It has to be an accumulation. It's cumulative in nature. So never lose eyes on the ball. And understand that excellence in public service is work in progress. It's never a destination. Honestly, it's a transit point. You must keep moving, because for every great thing you achieve, there are greater things to be achieved. And the day you think you've gotten to the bus stop of excellence, that day law of diminishing return starts to set in. Set the bar so high, such that even the man that trusts you the most will be worried maybe you will make it. The higher the bar, the more the opportunity to break grounds. A lot of things in the Ministry of Interior we've done, but because of our time, I won't be able to go about it because I don't want to waste your time. And also, before I go, I will say this. The Ministry of Interior, we know what it was before President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came on board. But today, I can say it very clearly. The Ministry of Interior is playing the role that the Home Office in the UK plays. The Ministry of Interior is playing the role that Homelands plays in America. We understood our mandate, and understanding the mandate, of course, these are the agencies under us. And I can tell you, know your laws. If you're a public servant, a lot of us, we are working in agencies today, you don't even know your laws. You can't implement a law you don't understand. That's how people fail. What you are supposed to achieve is not for you to think, it's in your law, your mandate, it's in the law. So understand the law. Never be tired of reading, and never be tired of research. The better the research, the greater the result. That's the truth. Some of us, we are so stale. That's the truth. We just believe we only learn. I tell people, my library at home is bigger than my bedroom. That's the truth. My library in my house is bigger, more equipped, even than my bedroom. Because nobody will remember you for how much is in your bank account. Nobody, Albert Einstein died how many years ago? Isaac Newton. We're still quoting Mandela and all these people. You will always be remembered, just as legacy will always be built on the premise of what you have upstairs, which is capacity and character. Build the capacity, build the character, and the world will be at your feet. So some of the achievements of the things we've done, we have a lot here. And I will end by saying this. To think the Cohort 5, Mr. Aig has given you the best gift of all. The foundation has given you the best gift of all. And what's the best gift of all? Knowledge. Because knowledge is not just for your consumption. It goes to your children, and it also goes to your colleagues at work. Be change makers. You've been trained not just to be end users, but you'll be trained as train the trainers wherever you find yourself. Be the agent of change. Be the symbol of a new Nigeria and a new Africa. And understand that when you're down, there's only one place to go, up. Africa needs the best of brains. And you're lucky to be among the 68 in a country of close to 1 billion. How lucky you guys are. A lot of people will break the bank to be here, but you're here. God has used somebody to transform you. It's left for you to be the agent of transformation, agent of reformation, and of course, the agent of reconfiguration of the African public service space. Let's go make it work, and let us understand there is nothing wrong with Africa that cannot be made right by Africans. You and I. Let's get to work and let Africa become the rising giant of the world. God bless you.